All right. So if we talk about validation and vulnerability, hey, y'all, hey, 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 I want to talk about validation and vulnerability within relationships. If you are new here, my name is Coach Veronica Marie, and I delight in helping people live a healthy and a happy life. So let's look at vulnerability right quick. So, vulnerability is the ability to be seen or to be known, to be heard. Right. So many people are not comfortable with vulnerability and for good reason. I don't think you need to be vulnerable in every situation. I don't think you need to be vulnerable around people who have not shown that they know how to handle your heart well. So it would be wise not to offer vulnerability to someone that you don't know or has proven that they don't know how to handle your heart. They don't know how to handle honesty. They don't know how to handle feedback. They don't know how to handle much. Then it makes sense not to be vulnerable with them. Do you agree or disagree? That's not just my opinion, that's a fact. You're not taking good self care if you are walking around trying to be vulnerable with people who are showing that they're not going to handle it well. Vulnerability, the ability to be seen, the ability to be known. Here's a question. Are you wanting to be vulnerable with people who don't handle it well? Do you want that? Like, is there someone in your life that you know isn't handling vulnerability well, yet you still want it with them? And so you still try, hey there, you still try anyway, and then you get disgruntled and disgusted. And the topic here is vulnerability and validation. So now, if I look at validation, I would describe validation as the acknowledgement of someone's experience, feelings, and thoughts as important. You acknowledge that their feelings, thoughts, and opinions, experiences are important, right? That means you are seeing them and all of that as valid. How do you see that? I want to know. Validation. Validation is the acknowledgement of whatever you are experiencing as important, as relevant, as worth hearing, as worth saying, as worth listening to. Now, I want you to think about some relationships that you have right now. And in each one of them, rate that relationship on validation, how well that person validates. I want to see what you come up with. Think about the relationships in your world and rate them according to the level of validation you experience. Now, remember, we are defining validation as the acknowledgement of your experiences as important, as worthy of being said, worthy of being heard, worthy of being considered. Now, think about the relationships in your world where you are experiencing a low level of validation. And think about this. Are they not saying that this is too much, not important, not worthy of their attention, not worthy of the time it takes to sort through it and such? And you see that? And so what we need to do is align with people who believe that what you have to say is worth saying. It's worth hearing. It's worth attending to. It's worth trying to understand. Right. Now, I want you to think about yourself and the people who are in your life. And hey there, rate your own level of validation. Do you get aggravated with people? That's a form of invalidation. I'm here to tell you. Do you get impatient and frustrated? That's a form of invalidation. Roll your eyes, suck your teeth, breathe hard. These are ways that you invalidate another person's experience. You decided not to respond anymore. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And at some point we have to pull ourselves away from these interactions, right? Even think about yourself, right? Again, like when you hear something or read something that doesn't sit well or something you don't agree with, do you go, okay, that's valid for them and walk away, or do you in your brain judge it and thereby invalidate it? Think about it. We are so used to invalidating other people's experiences, especially online. I'm glad you brought that up, especially online, because it's so easy to. It's so easy to watch a video and go, oh my God, that's so whatever. That's foolishness. That's this. But it is their valid experience. I think we need to practice that, you know? And so I want to talk about some ways that you can offer validation because when someone offers validation, and when I'm talking about validation, let me be clear. I'm not talking about validating the person, right? Because that's a whole inner work. What I'm talking about right now is validating what they are saying, acknowledging that what they are saying is important and worthy of attention, right? Now, there's levels to validation as well. I don't think you have to show extreme validation to things that are not important to you, but just a slight acknowledgement of that's how they are, that's where they are. Okay, I think that's important. Like men with emotional issues, not my, okay, I see. So I think we need to start practicing validation, but there's some ways of being, right, that you don't want to attend a deep level of validation to. You just want to acknowledge that that is their experience, that's what they're doing, but you don't want to pay a lot of attention or spend a lot of energy in, and that makes sense to me. So let's talk about validation and what that could look like. So first of all, we don't want to just validate as a perfunctory action, meaning we don't want to just do it because we think it's the right thing to do. I'm talking about a deep seeing, right? You got to see deeply that what this person is saying, what this person is experiencing is important and it's worthy of being attended to, maybe not by you, but it's worthy of being attended to by them because it's in their head, it's in their thoughts, it's in their experience. So I think we have to start there. When you are validating, you're not saying, I agree. When you're validating, you're not saying, I like what you say. When you are validating, what you're simply saying is you're having a human experience and I acknowledge it. I see what you're saying. I hear what you're saying. I'm following the way that you're thinking, right? That's the first part of it. Now, when you talk about people who are important to you, I think that's when we go a little bit deeper into the validation, more into, okay, that experience is relevant and it's important because it's important to them, right? And validation leads to something else. It leads to more understanding when you begin to ask questions, and it leads to empathy and it leads to support. But we can't really get there if we don't start with validation. What a person is saying is worth saying because they feel it. It's worth saying because it's their experience. I want to keep repeating this because a lot of people think, oh, you shouldn't have said that. You could have kept that to yourself. Invalidating. Now, I'm not going to offer validation to everyone. And let's just be honest. I pick and choose because my attention is important, right? And I advise you to do the same thing. But also realize that invalidating someone is requiring your attention. It's requiring your energy too. To take time and type a whole comment to invalidate someone's experience, that takes time. That takes energy. And you got to ask yourself, is it worth it? If you don't like someone, spending time in their energy and being upset and having a fit and walking away feeling drained, that takes time. That takes energy as well to invalidate the experience, right? So when someone is close to you, validation could sound a little more intimate. Like, I really hear how important this is to you. I really see that this affected you deeply. I could see it. I could tell by your energy. I could hear it in your tone. These are ways that we can validate. I can tell that what they said really cut. I can see that you are experiencing a lot of distress over this, right? Validation. Now, what can you do if you are in an energy of invalidation, but you really want to be validating. What can you do? Because I think that's relevant. Sometimes we slip and we may go into a space of invalidating within ourselves, even if it doesn't make it on the outside, right? What can you do if we're close? If you're close to someone and within yourself, you're not plugged into that deep feeling. Maybe you didn't practice it yet. Maybe it didn't take root yet. Or maybe you just had a moment and what they're saying is just not making sense. It's not the space you want to be in. Excuse me. But you still want to attend to it, right? I think the first thing to do is be honest with yourself. Right? Don't just start listening because you have to. Because remember, I started by saying validation is not something perfunctory. We're not doing it because we're obligated or we have to or we are expected to. We need to do it from a deep place, right? So if you notice that someone is requiring a conversation from you and they want to share an experience and you're close, right? I think number one, you got to be honest with yourself and be like, okay, I'm not really in an energy of openness here. And I don't want to offer that to them because I do feel what they have to say is valid. I'm just not in a space, right? Number one, honesty with self. Just acknowledge the space that you're in. Now, can you shift your energy is the next question. Can you shift your energy into openness? Can you compartmentalize? Can you put aside where you are and what you're feeling for the sake of hearing what they have to say and attending to it in validation? Or do you need more time or another time? That's valid, right? You have to speak up for your needs because validation is not something we're just going for because it's the right thing to do. And then you're sitting there feeling drained or you're sitting there feeling resentful because you really rather be doing something else. So you got something else on your mind, but you had to listen to them. That's not where we want to go with it. So you self-assess. If I'm not in the energy to be open because I'm not in that space, then I'm going to practice good self-care and say, I really want to hear what you have to say. There's validation. What you have to say is important to me and I want to hear it. There's validation. Validation doesn't require you to self-sacrifice. I can tell that this is important to you and it's something I want to hear from you. I just have to put myself in the right energy because internally I am feeling away. Not about you, but I'm just feeling away in general. Can I call you back or can I text you back or can I come back and talk to you? Or right now I'll go, take a shower and reset and then come back out. That's validation. What you have to say is valid. How many times have you tried to talk to somebody about something, but they were already so aggravated and they sat there and tried to listen, but only showed that they really didn't want to hear what you had to say. It just was a bother. And think about times that you've done that, right? You sat and you listened to someone and you were not in the energy of it, but you felt like you had to, wanted to, that was your role, whatever it was, right? Offering a lot of invalidation is what happens. So self-assess, right? I want to talk about this because I can tell how important it is. I just need to, go give me a sip of wine before I start this conversation or whatever it is that you need to say. Or before I listen, I need to say that if I find myself becoming in a negative energy while you're talking, I'll stop it, right? But I'm going to do my best to hear you out. Quick reflection, right? And self-care, right? Because self-care is saying, I can't do it right now, but I want to. Sometimes you really love a person and you really want to hear what they have to say, but it's just not the right time. You can still offer validation. I can see this is important. I know you want to talk about it. I know this matters to you. But for me right now, XYZ, can I come back? Is it okay to stop or end a relationship? This is a question coming through. If you need to do the work on your own, absolutely. If you feel like that's what you need to do, it is absolutely valid and important and essential that you do that, right? Because sometimes it's easy to think that we could do the work with a person in our lives, but sometimes we really need to get away because when you get away, when you have alone time, I just posted a short on YouTube about this. The importance of alone time is you get to process your thoughts without someone else's. You get to sit with yourself without a need to attend to someone else or time limits and things like that. And so we know that relationships do require time spent. We know relationships require attention. And if your attention needs to be inward because you're processing or you're trying to think about what do I really feel? Who am I now? How important is this? Then you need to do that in isolation. I think that's valid. That's important. That's essential. You should do it. If you feel that that's what you need, that's exactly what you should be doing. Because if you don't, you're not going to be clear within yourself. What's most important in every decision is clarity, clarity of self, knowing yourself and acting authentically. If you are not clear about your inner landscape, then you cannot act authentically. And then the person is not receiving the best of you. And if they don't see that, you're welcome. If they don't see that, then it's time for them to expand into some understanding. Sometimes people fear abandonment, they fear disconnection, they want to hang on. We could do this together. We could do this together. And there are things you can do together, but within yourself, you know what's true for you. And when someone is interested in your well being, they need to be able to be mature enough to hear that and not take it personal. Yes, it hurts. Yes, it can be disappointing. Yes, they will miss you. But what's most important when you love someone or just in general is that they be well for themselves because how are they going to be well for you? Right. And sometimes people will turn that on you and try to, what I call hold you hostage within the connection. I thought you said you was going to be there. I thought you said we were doing everything together. I thought how you changed that fast. They do all of that. Right. And it's guilt strategies. But what we have to remember is that self-care is going to give you the clarity that you need, especially if you're getting help, especially if you are reading and watching videos and you're journaling and you're taking time. They would even benefit from you becoming a better version of yourself, but mostly it's for you. Right. And I think that we need to come away from this immature stance of if you loved me, you would this. If you wanted to, you would that. There's lots of things that people want to do that they can't do in moments, even when they really want to. Haven't you ever experienced that? You really wanted to do something, but you just didn't have any more energy, or you really wanted to do something, but you just didn't have the bandwidth. You really wanted to do something, but you didn't have the time. You really wanted to do something, but your emotional energy was low. Right. So if your fuel tank is running close to empty or on empty, then you have to practice self-care and refill. You have to practice self-care and become empowered to create the life that you want. Otherwise, you're sitting in someone else's world and someone else's reality crumbling on the inside, and nobody wins with that. You will usually push through and regret it. I've certainly done that in my world. I'm glad that you hear it. I'm glad that you asked the question, right? This is valid. And a lot of times in relationships, we're so in a hurry to invalidate something. Saying things like that doesn't make sense. Why you have to do it like that? Why you have to, because this is what I feel is best for me. And if I figure out if there's a better way tomorrow, then I'll do it that way tomorrow. Right. But right now, this is what I feel is best. And at no point in a healthy connection should you be having to go through grief and guilt and shame and accusation when you are trying to do better for yourself, whatever that is. Maybe you just want to feel better every day because the relationship is heavy. Maybe there's some spaces in yourself you're recognizing within the relationship and you didn't know it was there, and you want to take some time and figure whatever it is, it's valid and you need to do it. And that moves me into my second point. If you are not self-validated, right? If you're not firmly planted in your why am I doing this? Why am I saying this? Why? If you're not firmly planted and you don't feel it's valid, then that's going to leave a small space for someone to get in, invalidate, and that small space will turn into a big space of self-doubt. You got to understand your own why. Why am I doing this? Why do I need this? And that is enough. I need it because I need myself. That's enough. I need to do it because I need to understand more about what's going on in me. That's enough. I need to do it because I need to understand what's really going on between us, and I can't see it close up. I got to back up a little bit to see. That's enough. Right. And you got to know that that's enough, because people who are not getting what they want will come in and blame and accuse. Did you ever really love me? Did you ever intend to stay? How long have you been? It's typical when people do this, but you have to know within yourself, I'm doing this for me and I need it for me. And regardless of how you see it, right? I got to do it. Here's the other thing it tells me: when a person hears that you need to be by yourself, hears that you need to work on yourself, hears that you need to come out of the relationship, and they move into all of those things that I just said, it's telling me that they never really knew your heart. They knew things about you, but they never really knew your heart, right? Because if they knew that your heart, they would understand that this person, right, is making this decision for herself, and she should, because she takes good care of herself, or they take good care of themselves. They wouldn't turn it inward as if you are doing something wrong or something that should be villainized, right? That's what it tells me. It tells me that there wasn't a plugging in deeply, because if I was with a person and they said, I need to be by myself because there's a lot that I'm learning, because I know how important that is, regardless of how much it hurt, I would say, I get it. And God, I wish that wasn't the case, but I get it. And I know you need to do what you need to do for you. And I want you to take care of you because I'm going to take care of myself. Right? Is the screen buffering? I'm stopping to make sure that the screen is not buffering over here, because I think the connection is bad. So anyway, I'm still on the podcast, so I'll continue here and other people can listen in. Did the screen buffer? I was saying that if I was dealing with someone in whatever capacity, friendship, romantic relationship, or whatever. Did y'all hear what I said? In either, whether you heard it or not, I'm going to say it again. If I was dealing with someone in any capacity and they told me that they needed to separate, they needed to be by themselves, they needed time, they needed space, because of how important I know that is, whether it hurts so bad or not, I would honor it. And there's the word that comes in with validation: honor. Right? I refuse to diminish what you're doing for yourself. I refuse to diminish your experience. I refuse to diminish your needs. I honor that. I don't want it. It doesn't feel good. I don't like it. But at the same time, you must be responsible for yourself. And listen, when you do this, I don't want you to be responsible for me, because I got me. I want you to do what you need to do for you. I understand. Right. And then I would self-assess. What capacity do I have here? Right? Do I have the capacity to wait? Do I have the capacity to just be friends with them? Gotta be honest, right? Do I want to also just kind of let it be completely disconnected because it would hurt too much while I'm healing? I would have to self-assess, right? But I would never blame, accuse, or shame a person for wanting what they want, for feeling what they feel, for needing what they need. Absolutely not. That's not okay. It's not a sign of maturity. It's not a sign of living in love. And I'm not saying they don't love you. I'm saying it's not a sign of living in love. That's living in lack. They may still love you, right? Because love is not really tied to what they're doing. But love is the energy they emanate from, right? Their actions radiate from love or lack. And so if they're holding on because they're scared, or they fear someone else will have you, or all the things, a myriad of things, those things are valid, but they have to take care of themselves. And so do you, right? So thank you for asking that question, because that's totally in alignment with what we're talking about today. So that's it. I am live on my podcast. So this is going to be in my podcast recordings. Validation and vulnerability. My focus today was validation, but I'm going to come back and talk about vulnerability, because we got to understand what vulnerability really is. Sometimes a person is calling vulnerability a space in them that they don't feel good about. And when you don't respond the way that they want you to, they will, fold inward and be like, I was just being vulnerable. That's something else. And we'll talk about what that something else is. Okay. All right. So for now, I'll go. You can find me on my website at veronicamarie.com. I want you to remember that every Wednesday we have community stretch. It's free from 8 a.m. to 8:20 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Help you get moving in your body. I have a lot of new things coming up. You are welcome. And I'm so glad that you are here. Now, I am weaning my audience off of TikTok onto my other channels. So this is why I'm here, but eventually I won't be. So just giving you that heads up. I won't go all the way away, but my presence is going to diminish significantly here, because I'm going to be more present on YouTube, growing that audience, and my podcast, my blog, my mailing list, the books, all of that stuff. All right. I appreciate y'all and the time that we continue to share. And I hope we can continue to share it together in our online community. And y'all have a good day.